Okay, my name is Lawrence McGlynn, and you are listening to the award-winning Philadelphia Hall Monitor here on WPPM 106.5 in Philadelphia, on Comcast Channel 66, and streaming live at phillycam.org. You can find us on Twitter at Hall Monitor WPPM, on our YouTube channel, and on our Facebook at PHM WPPM. Tonight on the program, we'll be joined by City Controller Christy Brady. Lance Haver will discuss how other transit agencies across the Commonwealth are handling the budget standoff in Harrisburg. And Vanessa Maria Graber will report on the recent transit protest at Senator Picozzi's office up in the Northeast. And I think we're going to start with that right away. So let's go to Vanessa Maria Graber's report from Senator Picozzi's office.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Maria Graber, and I'm in Northeast Philadelphia today, right in front of Senator Joe Picozzi's office, which is behind me. And across the parking lot, there is a protest taking place. There's a crowd of protesters assembled for Transit Tuesdays. Just on Monday, a group of activists took over his office and did a sit-in to advocate that Senator Picozzi take action to fully fund SEPTA. Right now in our state legislature, the Senate and the House is at odds with two different funding proposals for SEPTA, and time is running out. On August 24th, the new cuts are set to take effect. There are signs all over the city with the proposed route cuts, and SEPTA navigators have been working with riders to inform them of alternative routes that are possible. The people gathered at the protest are very concerned about this, and they're here to advocate for more funding for SEPTA. Let's take a listen to what they said.
Cuts! No way! We ride SEPTA every day! No way! We ride SEPTA every day!
I'm out here today with Transit Forward Philly for what they're calling Transit Tuesdays. Train to Harrisburg. I've talked to him about it. So he has a real understanding of why SEPTA is so important. So we're starting here with Joe, but then they're going to move around to all of the other senators who... He is the senator in the Northeast. He is one of the people who has been continuously telling us he's on our side and he wants to protect SEPTA. He wants to expand SEPTA, but the bill he just put forward with his colleagues is doing the opposite. So we're out here today holding him to task.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Rogers. I represent the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen, Liberty Local Lodge 53 out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. By now, we've heard all the forewarnings. We've heard the numbers. Our politicians have the data. In just under a week, SEPTA's first round of cuts are going to go into effect. Bus routes will be eliminated and some shortened. Trolley and subway routes will be running with reduced frequency. This is now going to be a reality because the state Senate refuses to fund SEPTA. State Senator Picozzi campaigned on a platform that boasts strengthening public safety, enhancing quality of life in our neighborhoods, and improving education. That's right from his website. His voting record, however, contradicts those principles. School starts next week. How are kids getting to school with these service cuts implemented? Working men and women will struggle to get to work, maybe even maintain employment. Our elderly and disabled, this is how SEPTA is how they get around. So voting to defund SEPTA isn't improving anybody's quality of life. It hurts the city, the region, and ultimately the state. This can be fixed before it gets worse. BRS stands with SEPTA and the rest of Philadelphia. We call upon Senator Picozzi and the rest of the state Senate to make the right choice and fund SEPTA now.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Gary Hanna. I'm a lifelong resident of Northeast Philadelphia, and I'm part of the 5th Senatorial District. I'm a 5-year employee for the city of Philadelphia. As a city worker that uses regional rail every day, every work day, I'm concerned about the access to get to and from work with the impending cuts to SEPTA service. Many essential city employees and retirees, as well as neighbors in my community, rely on SEPTA to go to work, go grocery shopping, make it to doctor's appointments, and other daily activities. Reduction in services and increases in fares of 21% will severely impact our ability to move around the city and be unaffordable to those who are on a fixed budget. SEPTA is a lifeline for workers like me to commute to our jobs across the region, especially in Center City, Philadelphia, where daily parking expenses would create a real financial burden and traffic nightmare. This does not include the many that have no other option other than public transportation. We need funding now to support SEPTA and the over 700,000 riders who use it daily.
Hi everybody, my name is Jenny Whitty, and I guess I'm representing old people, senior citizens. I just want to tell you, we depend on SEPTA. I am a constituent here in this district. I live in Bustleton. One of the reasons why I live where I do is because of public transportation. Because I can get where I need to go. I can get to doctor's appointments. I can get to my synagogue. I can do what I need to do. And without SEPTA, those things are going to be so much more difficult. I have friends, one of my good friends is going blind. How is she supposed to get to her doctor's appointments without SEPTA? And another one just fell and she hurt her knees and she can't walk very far. She can't get to the grocery store anymore. She's got to go on SEPTA. We need SEPTA. We need it funded now.
My name is Antoine Lowe. I'm the Vice President of District Council 33. But this is not an Eastern Pennsylvania versus a Western Pennsylvania fight.
Amen.
This is not a Democrat versus Republican fight. This is a fight for the citizens of Philadelphia to continue to, and the Eastern Pennsylvania, to continue the services that we have been provided by SEPTA long before I was born. What you've heard today from every person that came up here and spoke, you've heard what's called the human side. When I first got into the union business, that was what I was taught, is we could talk black and white, we can talk statistics, we could talk about all that. But let's talk about the human side to the effects of these cuts from SEPTA. And the human side is this, right? I'm a sanitation worker. I've been a sanitation worker for 26 years, starting right up here in Northeast Philadelphia. And when I started that job 26 years ago, you know how I got to work? The Route 70 bus, the Route 84, or the Route 66. That's how I got to work every single day until I could afford to buy a car. That's how I got to work. These cuts will tremendously affect the public servants that work for the city of Philadelphia, like my brother from Ask Me DC 47. The people that provide the services, many of them catch SEPTA every single day. Why? Because like the brother said, we can't afford to buy cars. Many can't even afford to ride the buses, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, that is a service that is provided. And guess what? We need that service here. We need it to stay. We need them to fund SEPTA now. We need them to make sure that the citizens of Philadelphia and the Eastern Pennsylvania are able to move around the way that they need to be moved around this city of Philadelphia. I have 3 school-aged children. 2 are in high school, 1's getting ready to go to high school. And guess what? They catch SEPTA. So what does that mean for the parent that has to get out of the house early in the morning? What are their child to do? What are their children to do? Are they to fend for themselves? No, that's not how this goes. When our elected officials took office, they took an oath and a vow to serve the people of this great state of Pennsylvania. And guess what we need them to do? We need them to step up and do their job and stand on what they said they would do when they took that oath. We need them to stand up and do what's needed to make sure that the citizens of this great city and the eastern side of Pennsylvania, we need them to make sure that they do their job so that we can continue to move about our lives every single day.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy Carr with AFT Pennsylvania. AFT Pennsylvania has the privilege of representing tens of thousands of educators and school professionals at public schools, colleges, and universities here in Northeast Philly, across the city, out west in Pittsburgh and Erie, and in cities and towns in between. Both our members and the students they teach rely on Pennsylvania's many public transit agencies to get to and from work and school safely and reliably each and every day. You've heard from some of the folks out here today. But as schools across the state prepare to begin another year, that reliability and access is now in question because Senate Republicans refuse to treat public transit like the public good that it is. Without the bus and subway routes that our communities have come to depend on, starting Monday, we're going to see more students who are late to school or missing class altogether, workers who struggle to commute on time, and an unnecessary influx of hundreds of thousands of new cars on our already congested streets and highways. This is a lose-lose situation for everybody in Pennsylvania. Our students and our workers deserve better from our elected officials, and AFT Pennsylvania will continue to stand here with all of you to demand Senate Republicans do their jobs and fund public transit now. Thank you.
My name is Fernando Romero. I've been working for SEPTA for 35 years. And in those 35 years, I witnessed a lot. But more important, like Antoine had mentioned earlier, if I got your name right. Thank you. The human aspect. Everything that's been shared today and prior to today is hit the nail on the head about the kids, workers, etc. But I can't help to not make a point about the senior citizens. I get sentimental at times, I'm sorry. Every day I'm picking up seniors and they do not have any other option except SEPTA. And even that's difficult for them, for 70, 80-year-olds to be able to be lugging their shopping cart, get their legs up on the bus, even though we have kneelers, at times it's still too high. I get passengers on a regular basis with their wheelchairs, and even that's been made easier with the newer buses, but there's not always enough room in the bus. I started thinking, damn, we're losing about half of our buses, you know, 32 routes. How are these people going to be able to manage? They're barely managing now. So I ask, and because I don't like the guy, I keep forgetting his name, give me a minute. I asked Picozzi, when I was listening, I kept thinking about this to myself, and I said, if he was here, I would ask him. So I don't know if that's for TV, but I wanted to ask Picozzi, do you care? And his buddies over there in Harrisburg. But then I said, why am I going to ask the question? If they cared, we wouldn't be here right now, right? Right? So it's evident, it's obvious to me, they don't care. So then do what politicians do, all right? Come up to the plate, give us what we all need, and make yourselves look great, even though we know different. Right? If we cannot succeed in our mission here, we shouldn't even be a mission, because when I first started at SEPTA, there was this thing called dedicated funding. I believe the governor was Casey, a Democrat. What a coincidence, right? That got chopped up a little bit with Ridge. There were cuts then, but nothing to this level. So here we go again. But we had dedicated funding. That's what we should have. And it's not only here in Pennsylvania, in the city of Philadelphia, it's in New York, it's in Washington. Right now, Chicago is going through the same thing. So all the politicians, because you don't ride the buses, you don't ride the trains, you don't know what it feels like, we all do. And if they don't come through, let's remember this on election day. Okay? Take care.
We've started with Joe because SEPTA runs through his district. He understands how this goes. He takes the train to Harrisburg. I've talked to him about it. So he has a real understanding of why SEPTA is so important. So we're starting here with Joe, but then they're going to move around to all of the other senators who don't want to do what they're supposed to do and fund SEPTA.
There was a lot of folks who were honking and clapping and supporting. What's your message to them? How can they get involved? Is there more information for them to find?
Totally. I think this is an issue for public transit riders and drivers alike. I think about the one bus that I take, where all those 40 people on the bus are going to go into what? Cars? They're going to go into Lyfts? They're going to go into Ubers? The roads are going to be disastrous. So this is an everybody issue. People in the Northeast specifically should be making their voice heard to Joe Picozzi. They should be reaching out to him directly. His office is ready with a bunch of bogus talking points to give you, but keep the pressure up, keep calling, keep emailing. Everyone can contact Joe Picozzi. We also need to be talking to his boss, the Senate Majority Leader Pittman. He's really important to contact because he hates SEPTA. He doesn't care about Philadelphia, even though Philadelphia is giving him and his district so much money. A place you can go is transitforallpa.org, I believe, or just look up Transit for All PA and it'll come up. They are a great resource to keep you up to date with what's happening in the fight and what you can do to join in.
This is our first Transit Tuesday. I hope it's our last because there's a deal. But we're going to keep at this at every legislator who needs to hear this message until we get Transit for All. Talked about, people are going to ask, where were we? What did we do? I think we're going to be able to look back and say this was the moment that we made sure not just that SEPTA had funding, but that we created a city where no one is left behind, where people can get where they need to go, and we work towards a city of progress for all of these incredible working people, these riders and community members working together. So let's keep up the fight.
All right. And we have with us Vanessa Maria Graber, Lance Haver, and Denise Clay Murray. How's everyone doing tonight?
We're doing okay.
So Vanessa, we've already seen some of these events, and I think we're gonna see a lot more of them. What was this like being there? And it looked like it had a big crowd. It looked like enthusiasm was high, even though we're dealing with a very difficult situation. And you're muted there, Vanessa.
I want to also mention that there was a rally that was held in front of Senator Picozzi's office, where he was surrounded by his supporters. He gave brief remarks, and then some of those supporters came over to the other protest. And they were heckling a bit and causing kind of a nuisance. But there was a pretty big crowd over there. Lots of people from Northeast Philly. Of course, I'm from Northeast Philly. You don't see many protests up there. So it was very exciting to see lots of people gathered up at the plaza on Academy Road. And I talked to many people, right? So a lot of those interviews and conversations didn't make the final cut of this video. But people are really troubled. They're very concerned. Almost everyone I talked to was a SEPTA rider. They take SEPTA to work, and they don't have the money to take Uber or Lyft every day. For a lot of people, there are no alternative routes. Other folks, they said they can't have a car. They don't want to drive a car. There were some disabled people said that we actually can't drive a car. And there was a lot of older people there that also rely on SEPTA to get to their appointments. And you heard from some of them. And so the question that I was left with is like, what are people going to do? And also, many people made the point, that even if you don't ride SEPTA, if you're somebody like me, although I occasionally take the regional rail into Center City to go to the Philly Cam studios and to go to City Hall, but I work from home, so I mostly don't commute to work. But they made me think about drivers and what it's like currently to drive around the city. It's already pretty congested. This was a major point during the arena protests and discussions, right? The fact that this proposed arena would cause a lot of gridlock and congestion in Center City. And we're back at the same place almost a year later, right? There's an estimated 250,000 more cars will be on the road. I can't imagine that. It took me a really long time to get from North Philadelphia to Northeast Philly, almost 40 minutes. And that was because of the traffic that was naturally occurring. There were no accidents or construction. And as I drove up there, I thought about that, like, oh my gosh, like, what is this drive going to be like with that many more cars on the road? I think most people are praying and hoping for some sort of intervention by the governor or, SEPTA dipping into those reserve funds. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty that's quite frankly really freaking people out. And they're quite worried and quite concerned about how they're going to be able to be transported around the city.
Well, I was just going to say, yesterday in the Inquirer, they had a story about how paratransit is going to be impacted by this because some of the same routes that are used for paratransit are some of the very routes that are being cut. And also paratransit is about to go up. It's $4.25 now, one way. It's now going to go up to $5.75. And if you're a senior citizen, or if you're somebody who is going to dialysis treatment or something like that, you can't necessarily afford $5.75 each way, because if you're on Social Security, that may be the difference between you being able to have a meal this week or you having to make other arrangements. So it's really, I don't think that folks are taking this as, I don't think that like elected officials are taking this as seriously as they should on this, because this can cause some very real pain. And this may also, in the long run, affect Hall Monitor itself a little bit. Because you see, I'm doing my part of the show from Wilmington, Delaware. On September 2nd, particularly midday, the number of trains that are going to be going from the Wilmington Transportation Center into Philadelphia, it is going to be cut down. In January, that particular train is going to be cut altogether. That's one of the regional rail lines that's signaled for destruction. And the thing is, SEPTA just built a brand new, very nice transportation center in Claymont, and also a really nice one in Newark a couple of years ago. So you're going to have these two SEPTA transportation centers that people could use that they won't be able to use because there won't be any trains. And Amtrak is not cheap. I mean, I'll have to take Amtrak into the city, but I don't know, but I'm really going to have to do some creative financing, as will a lot of other commuters that count on the Wilmington Newark line to get to places like the University of Pennsylvania Hospital and other places that they work.
And there's while there plenty of blame deserves to be placed on Harrisburg, there's also a little bit of a local angle here for blame, and that's SEPTA itself.
Mm-hmm.
They have the money to forestall this, at least temporarily, and they choose not to use it. Lance Havers reported on this. For months we've been talking about this. And one of the things I want to talk a little bit about here, and Lance, you had a piece in Hall Monitor's newsletter yesterday about what some of the other transit organizations around the Commonwealth, what they're doing and how they're adjusting to this. Well, what are they doing?
Well, before I start on that, I think there are really two stories here. One is the story that Vanessa was covering, the rallies, the protests, and those people demanding more money from the state for the long-term health of SEPTA and every other public transit system in the state. Because it's not, even though SEPTA won't bring other transit systems in to have these discussions, it is every other transit system in the state that needs additional funding at some point. So that's one story. The other story is, how does SEPTA deal with the budget, the state budget not being passed, and not knowing how much more money they're going to get? And that's what I wrote about this week. There are approximately 40 other public transit systems in the state. Some of them are big, some of them are small. But there's only one public transit system that actually has cut service, or is proposing to cut service and proposing to raise fares before the state budget is passed, and that's SEPTA. And that raises the question, Erie, Pennsylvania, which is a significantly bigger city than some of the smaller places that have public transit. It's not the size of Pittsburgh, it's not the size of Philadelphia, but it's a major city. They're continuing to operate their public transit system where they actually have free service on Saturdays to get people to go downtown. And they have a discount service for low-income riders. They're not going to cut either of them until they see what they're going to get from the budget. None of these other companies are having their service impacted. So we wrote to SEPTA's public relations person and said, well, what's going on here? Why is SEPTA the only one that can't deal with the problem of the budget not being passed? And I'm going to read you what he sent us. It's, good evening, Mr. Haver. Well, I know that other agencies are facing similar cuts due to due to transit funding crisis. I'm not familiar enough with their budgets or operations to provide this type of comparison. So SEPTA hasn't bothered to look at how other transit systems, Pittsburgh, Erie, Allentown, Easton, have dealt with this unknown problem. And as a result, what they're doing is they're eliminating service starting this Sunday. They're raising fares starting on September 1st to the highest in the nation. And that is what's unneeded. The effort to get the Republicans to put more money in the budget, incredibly important, something we have to continue to talk about. But the short term is also critical. The timing of these cuts is really unbelievably difficult. The cuts are going to show up the first day kids go to school. Now, I know in the best of all worlds, every parent has planned this all out. They're reading the papers, they're listening to us, they're going to the SEPTA webpage, and they know what buses are going to be cut. But I think anyone who believes that's not living in the real world. Most parents are really stressed. It's really hard. They've got to get everything together. They're going to wake up Monday, try and get their kids to school to find out the bus isn't there. And the school district knows that. Yet nothing is being done by the city, or nothing apparently is being done. There may be things behind the scenes. We may not hear about them. But there's been no public demand that SEPTA continue to operate the system until the budget impasse is met. Now, I do want to say to the people who have been out in front of Senator Picozzi and who took over his office that it's been having a tremendous impact on him. I had someone play for me the voicemail that they left on this person's phone message. And Senator Picozzi is saying he wants help to file a lawsuit to stop the cuts. Now, whether he's serious or not, I can't answer. The other thing that Senator Picozzi is saying is that the governor is going to announce in the next day that he is asking SEPTA to do away with the cuts. And the third thing that the senator is saying is that he has a lawyer who he believes is willing to file a lawsuit to stop the cuts. So all the pressure on him is actually working. But the difference is that those are Republicans who are trying to escape responsibility of funding public transit going forward, and the Democrats who are giving SEPTA an excuse to not try and figure out their own financing. Now, I know there are people who say, well, SEPTA needs the money in the rainy day fund for a rainy day. I would point out that if you're one of the people who's losing your service, it's raining. I would point out that if you're one of the people who has to pay the highest fare in the nation, it's raining. The state budget proposal by the Republicans is not a long-term solution. It doesn't do what's necessary because it takes money from the infrastructure budget and uses it for operating budgets. That's going to lead to catastrophes. That's going to lead to the old days when chunks of bridges were falling down. Some of us who have been around for a while remember going to the Mattiong Bridge and seeing that their solution to the decaying infrastructure was to put up a net to catch the pieces of concrete. Now, that's not an acceptable way to run a public transit system. But at the same time, those infrastructure dollars are not going to do any good. As Denise points out, those new stations, which are really great. It's really great to have new stations, and you need a capital budget to do that. But there's no point in having a capital budget to create new stations on train lines that aren't running. So we really, when we look at it, we have to see the two stories side by side.
And Lance, I just want to point out really quick that the amount of money we're talking about here, all these cuts are going to save SEPTA $5 million a month.
That's right.
They have $400 million in their fare stabilization reserve.
That's right.
So it's just over the course of this year, it will be $60 million, which is, just relatively not a significant amount from that reserve.
Right. You're absolutely right. I recognize that for any one of us, $5 million is a lot of money. It'd be nice to have $5 million. But SEPTA's annual operating budget is over $1.2 billion. $5 million means that all they'd have to do is not pay their bills for an extra 2 weeks. So the people that they owe money to call up and say, I know we said we pay you in 30 days, but now we're going to pay you in 45 days. Or call up the bondholders, which would be my preference, and say, we're only going to pay you interest this month and next month, and we're not going to pay you interest in principal until we get the money from the state. So there are plenty of solutions. SEPTA's in a difficult position for this reason. They've been holding the riders as hostages. They've been saying to the state legislators, unless you give us the money, we're going to harm the riders. We don't have any way of protecting them. We're going to take away their service and we're going to raise their fares. And for some bizarre reason, the SEPTA board believed that the upstate legislators would be worried about the people of color who ride SEPTA in the inner city. Now, I don't know what led them to that bizarre conclusion, but many of the people who run for office in Elk County and Potter County run saying we're going to stick it to the people in Philadelphia. And they're very happy not to fund SEPTA and very happy to harm the riders. So SEPTA's been saying we don't have any money. We don't have any money. We don't want to do this. It's the end of SEPTA. And now that the Republicans didn't come through and get them the money, they don't know how to say, well, we really do have the money. We don't have to do this, so we're not going to do it. And whether Senator Picozzi is telling us an accurate story that Governor Shapiro, is going to announce tomorrow that he's asking SEPTA not to make the cuts, I can't answer. Every person I called said they haven't heard that.
Vanessa, tell us about the infrastructure.
Yeah, something that didn't make the video is quite a few comments from the speakers, especially those who are, the train and rail conductors, about the growing concern of the old equipment that they're using. Some of those train cars are 60 years old. There was recently a fire that was contained on one of the SEPTA Trenton lines that was super concerning. And there people are thinking about not just how to restore the service itself, but again, these long-term problems that exist when it comes to the deteriorating infrastructure, right? And, buses that are old, trolley cars that are old, rail cars that are old. And so there needs to be a longer term solution and conversation about sustainability when it comes to SEPTA. Number two, because there were a lot of unions represented, there's an incredible amount of concern for potential layoffs, reduced hours, and real concern for the workers and how that's going to impact them. Of course, those people who have been in SEPTA for a really long time, like the gentleman Fernando, who was the bus driver from the Route 1 bus, he said he would be okay, but he was very concerned about younger, newer employees of SEPTA that might not be able to hold on to their jobs. And I think lastly, there's a real public safety concern as well, right? We've seen a number of crimes, violent crimes, happen on SEPTA platforms to the extent that the state wanted to intervene, right, and take away the DA's power to, enforce the laws as it relates to SEPTA crimes. That bus driver said that, when people have to wait longer and there's more crowded buses and trains and the rates are higher, that's going to impact public safety. It's a discussion that's not really being talked about, and I think it's really important. And lastly, I think a lot of people were really stunned at just, the lack of intervention and concern from both city council and our mayor, right? They are in belief that this is a crisis, right? And there is really no plan, especially as it relates to disabled people, seniors, and students, on how they're going to get access to transportation service. And so I don't think it's a rainy day. I think it's a hurricane, actually, that's happening. And there's just so much more to the story that we often see portrayed in the mainstream media, because these stories are covered in very short amounts of time. So hopefully we'll continue to cover this issue and monitor the developments that might be happening between now and the 24th.
Now, yesterday in the Inquirer, they interviewed Mayor Parker about why she hasn't been out in front in terms of this. And one of the things that struck me about this particular story was this quote where she says, and I guess I'm paraphrasing her, that she would rather not be performative that you don't need to see her out there, marching with people and protesting and saying, hey, you need to do better by my city. And, but she says that's not, as she often puts it, the way to get to yes. That she says she's in constant communication with the, Republicans and in the government, and that this is her way of getting to yes. But here's the thing. There is a difference between performative and present. And when your community, when the people who elected you are looking at you, Council President Kenyatta Johnson, members of City Council, when they are looking at you and saying, my mom may not be able to get to dialysis next week because her paratransit is being cut, or because it's become so much more expensive that she may not be able to use it. What are you going to say to them? These are your constituents. There is a difference between being performative and being present. And I think that a lot of people right now are demanding that their city leaders understand that difference, because after Sunday, it's going to get really ugly, because you're going to have kids trying to get to school, people trying to get to appointments, people trying to get to work, and all of this other stuff is going to go down. Plus, you're going to have like 250,000 more cars coming into a city that probably does not have parking lots for them. And the Philadelphia Parking Authority has already said we are going to more strenuously enforce the parking laws because of this. So you have the potential for this to be a really ugly problem. And what SEPTA is kind of doing is, it's kind of digging its own grave, because they were just recovering from the pandemic ridership levels being down. Do you really think that people are going to come back to you after you've pretty much told them we have $500 million that we could have spent to keep these cuts from happening, but we chose not to use it?
Yeah, they have to do something, right? And when the 24th rolls around, we're going to see what action's going to be taken. I guess we'll see shortly if there's a lawsuit or some other intervention. But this is, like I said, a crisis moment. It will severely impact everyone, whether you are a SEPTA rider or you are a driver. And I am really, really concerned about the most vulnerable people. This disproportionately impacts people experiencing poverty, people of color, our seniors, our students, and disabled people. And I think that a long-term, more sustainable solution is needed beyond any short-term interventions that might be implemented in the next couple of days.
And I have to kind of jump in here to follow back on a point that Lance made about the upstate politicians and how they use Philadelphia as a means to campaign. Studio 2 on WHYY, they asked the question, what can be done to make folks upstate a little more amenable to the SEPTA problem, to where they want to help solve it? And I said to, someone who was like asking questions about this, I said, the first thing you have to do is to get the folks who you are trying to get to help us with this problem to see Philadelphians as humans worthy of care and respect. I used to live in rural Pennsylvania. Because we do not want the FCC to come down on us, I will not tell you some of the things that folks in rural Pennsylvania had no problem saying to my face as a Black woman. I won't even get into that. But if you mention Philadelphia to them, the first image that pops into their heads is that we are this dystopian landscape that does not deserve to be preserved. If there were some way that many of these people could somehow drop a nuclear warhead on Philadelphia and have the buildings and everything else preserved so it can continue to be a tourist mecca, they would do it because they have no care or concern about us. They do not feel we're deserving of it. So unless you're going to deprogram them from that way of thought, it's going to be a really tough ride.
Hey,
And
Denise, we're going to have to leave it there for this segment because we have another interview, but definitely a conversation we're going to continue to have throughout the next couple of weeks.
And what we're going to get to now is a discussion Denise and I had yesterday with City Controller Christy Brady, where we talked about what her office does and also her role as on the PGW board, which is very interesting. So here's our interview with City Controller Christy Brady.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you tell us what the City Controller's office does?
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest questions I actually get when I go around across the city is, what do you do? And what the City Controller does is we promote an honest, effective, fully accountable city government. We are independent of the mayor and city council, and we conduct independent audits and analysis that provides objective, independent information to city officials, the public, other interested parties about the financial affairs of the city and on ways to improve city operations and the use of city resources.
And you also undertake various projects, and one of the projects that you undertook lately is a local services satisfaction survey. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the purpose of the survey was to find out what is important to the residents here in Philadelphia. We wanted to shine a light on what locals think of the services provided by the city. And the feedback of this survey was intended to give city leaders an understanding of respondents' experiences, assess departmental performance, and identify community priorities.
And what were some of the things that you found?
We found some interesting things. We launched the survey back in February. It remained open until the end of May. We had 551 participants, and just to give a little bit more background, we went out in a variety of ways. We used social media, we used email, we used mail, and more importantly, we also attended 94 community events around the city to get the word out. And we also had it in different languages, in Spanish and in Mandarin, just to make sure that we got a diverse group. And some of the things we found, imagine this, the top departments was fire. Everybody loves the fire department. But one of the low department scores was L&I. And I feel like that underscores some of the work that I have been doing in the office, because when I was out campaigning, I just get a lot of feedback from residents, not even just campaigning, going out into the community events. We get a lot of feedback regarding L&I issues, whether if it's construction practices or other issues. So that low score did not surprise me.
And what would you like to have happen now that this report is out there?
Well, I don't view this isn't just a citywide performance evaluation, but to me, it's a blueprint for transparency and accountability in government. The survey results were shared with the city's administration and with city council and also the public, because we want to have data-driven decisions to ensure that residents' voices are heard.
So I'm a believer that one of the most important things local government does is how it manages its budget and how it makes sure that those dollars are being spent in the right place.
Right.
What is your role in that budget process, and how do you look at things and decide how you're going to audit, who you're going to audit? How does that come together for you?
Thank you for that question. A lot of people think that I can direct money as controller, but what we do is, the budget process is between the mayor and her administration and city council. But the minute that budget is approved, that's when we come in to ensure that city spending is spent in accordance with the budget. And some of the things that we can do is analyze spending in accordance with the budget. We could do an analytical review, which is comparing budget to actual. Are there fluctuations? And that can drive where we may go in and take a deeper look into a city service, maybe a particular revenue, maybe a particular expenditure. So the budget is a document that each department has to abide by.
Let's change gears a little bit here. What is your role with the Philadelphia Gas Works? One of the many hats you wear here in the city.
Yes, so I am a commissioner of the Philadelphia Gas Commission. And not only that, I am now the chair of the Gas Commission. And since I became commissioner, I was never an expert in gas, but I am learning. And one of the things that I saw in the beginning were roles that should be in the gas works that haven't been filled and haven't been filled for years. So last year, the Gas Commission sent a letter over to Philadelphia Facilities Management Corporation, PFMC. Now, I guess to back it up a little bit, to say what each oversight does is Philadelphia Facilities Management Corporation manages the day-to-day operations of PGW, and they work under contract between the city and PFMC. They look over PGW through an executive team that should consist of a CEO, a CFO, and a COO. And PFC Management Corp, they're all appointed by the mayor. The Gas Commission provides oversight to PGW. We work with city administration and city council. The Gas Commission is made up of 5 individuals, the city controller, 2 are appointed by the mayor, and 2 are city council members. We approve the operating budget and we send recommendations for the capital budget to city council. So last year, the commission sent a letter over to PFMC to fill the roles of COO and CFO. Now, the chief financial officer, they had an acting one who was acting since like 2012. And we didn't have an issue with that person. We just said, if this is the person, just make him permanent. But the COO has been vacant since, I think, 2022. And that letter sort of just went with no response. But in May, we met with PFMC. We had a joint meeting with PFMC, the commission and PFMC, and they said that they were going to issue an RFP for a search firm for COO and CFO. That was around the end of May. So skip a few more months. We're now in August, and they finally issued the RFP, but it was just for a search firm, and it had no specifics about the positions, no timelines, no details. I didn't know why I was waiting 2 months for a 2-page RFP, and so I called on PFMC to amend it and put more detail on it. Let's get this done.
And from your current position with that critical eye, it makes sense that you would catch that and say, wait a second, what are we doing here?
Right. It is such a critical position, especially the COO. You know, they'll take the direction from the CEO, but then they can put it in the language for the engineers and the individuals at PGW that has that gas experience. It's a vital role, and it also provides that leadership bench for the future. It just puts the city and our gas payers at risk not having these roles filled.
Right. We get a lot of questions about public utilities. And one of the questions we get the most, can PGW and the water department combine certain services to save money? And one of the questions we get a lot is, can water bills and gas bills come together instead of both entities, putting them out separately, things like that. Are there some things that you might be looking at where there might be some overlap where things can be, the two agencies can work together?
Well, the water department is a department of the city where PGW is a component unit. I'm sure that there are union issues going on between the two, where you have DC 33, DC 47, and then the gas workers. So I don't know if bills. I don't see how two completely separate organizations can have a combined bill. This is the first I've ever even heard of it.
Okay. And what are some of the things that, in your role on the board, that you're looking to, how to keep rates low for like the working people in the city? What are some of those things that can be done?
Well, we want to partner with PFMC. I know that recently PGW asked for a rate increase, and so we want to work together to find out, well, what can we do to prevent these things from happening? I'm viewing my role as where can PGW grow to be good for the environment, but also grow and bring in more revenue into the city. There's LNG that we can explore. There's a lot that I think that we can do as the Gas Commission, and I'm looking forward to leading the Gas Commission in ways where we can look into these issues more deeply.
All right, I'd like to bring in Denise Clay Murray here on Philadelphia Hall Monitor.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time with us today, Controller Brady.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Now, in terms of your office is kind of like the group of people that looks at city systems and says, hey, you're either doing this wrong or you're doing this correctly, and this is great. When you get that, when you get the information that you get, like from the survey you just took, where does that information go? And do you sit down with the people that you're giving the information to and say, hey, look, this is what we found. This is what, and here's some suggestions.
Right. Yes, we do sit down. I have good partnerships with City Council, number one. And one of the things that I am really excited about is the work that I've been doing right now in partnership with L&I, where, as we've seen in the report, L&I did receive the lowest rating. And since I've been controller, I do put public safety at the top of my passion, I guess you could say, along with government accountability, transparency. And so we're going to be issuing our performance audit on L&I this week, on Thursday, I believe. And I'm happy to say that I have been working with Commissioner Miranda on implementing our recommendations, things that he's already started to do. So it's been a really positive experience to have that kind of partnership where I have a city department that's willing to implement our recommendations.
Now, you said that L&I got one of the lowest scores. Who got one of the highest
Yes.
and why? What did people say about them that they liked?
Some of the ratings was more of a score, so it was just like a 1 through 5. Now, we did have open-ended responses, but the department that had the highest rating, which was fire, there were no open-ended responses that said why, but I can imagine that, you know, this is a department where there's a lot of trust, and I would say outreach too. I mean, how many people who have kids can walk by a firehouse and maybe get to ring the bell or maybe sit in the seat, and they're always at the National Night Out for the kids to touch, see, and feel, because one of the most important things for a fireman is that a child, if there is a house fire, that they're not afraid of this person in this big mask with this oxygen mask coming out, that they don't run away from that person. So they, you know, it's important for that outreach. So it makes sense to me.
Are there any other highlights from the report that you want to share with us?
You know, some of the things I would say are what you would think. Public safety was a big issue. Car theft, homelessness. You know, people with rising rents. That was also part of the survey. So I don't really think that there was much of a surprise for me. You know, the things that you are hearing from the public are what's coming out.
Okay. Now, is this something you're going to be doing every year, or, you know, is this like an every 4-year thing that you're doing?
We haven't gotten that far yet. It was an idea from our policy director, and I want to use this as a blueprint for where we want to put our resources, whether if it's public safety, whether it's you know, I think one of the things that the report issued was that public safety rating in Kensington and Frankfurt was the lowest. Lower income had the lowest sense of public safety. Higher income had a greater criticism of L&I. We had open-ended responses where people were concerned about the tax structure in the city, wage tax and business tax being high. So you know, I'm listening to these ideas. I mean, that's why I like to go out into the community to get their feedback.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us. And I'm going to give you back
Absolutely.
to Lawrence McGlynn, our co-host, and you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
All right. Thank you, Denise. And Controller Bird, before we let you go, is there anything like a little preview of that report you're going to put out on Thursday that you can tell us about?
No preview, but just the fact that L&I is taking our recommendations and has already started to implement as the audit was going on. And I'm very, very happy to have that partnership.
Okay. Before we let you go again, I recommend that people go to your website and look at these reports. There's a lot of great information there about the city. I love it. Even if I wasn't a journalist, I'd be looking at this all the time because I think it's fascinating. Where can people find this information?
Okay, so you can find it on if you go to our website at controller.phila.gov, there'll be a pop-up where you can automatically enter your email address, but you don't have to. You could just go on our website, and when you go under newsletter, you'll see all the Municipal Money Matter newsletters that we issue, which are these monthly reports. And then there's also another section where it is our reports, all of our audit reports and
We'd like to thank the council member or the controller for being with us, and we will be back next week on Hall Monitor.